and we're live. So welcome everyone. It looks like I have two new messages here. A couple of people are saying hello. We're live streaming onto our YouTube channel, but we're also doing a webinar. So this is a broadcast webinar, and we've got so far 46 participants, some alum from NSU, and many from all over the country, nationally, Alpha Phi Sigma membership. So Alpha Phi Sigma is in the house, big and strong, and Professor Plotkin is a member of Alpha Phi Sigma. She's going to talk a little bit about that. I'm one of the faculty advisors here at NSU for our chapter, Omega Tau. And Dr. Jennifer Allen has a class tonight, but she's going to pop her head in, God willing, at some point during the webinar. And at the end, I'll give her an opportunity, hopefully, to say hello. And so I'm really excited about not only this webinar tonight and the great turnout, 51 participants, fantastic. And we'll see how many folks we get on YouTube as well. But what I'm really super excited about is having a guest like I do tonight, Sharon Plotkin. Professor Plotkin is a former North Miami forensic crime scene investigator, CSI. And how I met her was at AIU, I believe. I believe that's the first time we crossed paths, was at AIU when we were both teaching on the Weston campus and in the criminal justice program there. And that's when we first met each other. And I'm going to just brag on her from the minute that I met her and the minute that I was able to be in observation of her and all of her knowledge and all of her ability to teach, which is like phenomenal teacher, phenomenal trainer. You just know when you're in the presence of greatness. And I knew that then, and I know that now. And now she teaches full time at Miami-Dade. She's since retired from the police department. And so I was just so grateful, good friends and people who you really connect with. You could go years. You can go years where you don't speak to each other, and not because you don't want to, just because life is lifing. But you just reach out, you text, and it's just like, would you be willing to be a guest for me and help me with this webinar? And she was like, I'm totally in. She loves her work. She's passionate about it. She knows a lot about it. So please help me welcome Professor Sharon Plotkin, CSI expert. Take it away, Sharon.
She is embarrassing, isn't she? I love you, Dr. Telesco. And I love all of you for being here with me today. I love that we're from all over. I saw that there was Canada and Hawaii. I currently am in California. I'm in San Mateo. I am teaching law enforcement out here. I'm so excited to be out here. And as Dr. Telesco said, the opportunity to actually teach and share what I love doing. It's like they say, if you love what you're doing, you don't work a day in your life. I have been doing crime scene for 21 years and did have the fortune to meet Dr. Telesco when I began teaching at American Intercontinental University years ago. But it was great to be able to go into the classroom and teach during the day when I was actually doing crime scene at night, so that I can actually come in there and teach the students the real world of crime scene investigations. And I have some pictures I'm going to show you all, so you all see the difference into what you're watching in TV and what you're actually seeing for real. Also, in 1988, it was Dr. Regina Schern, who is actually the president now of Alpha Phi Sigma, who convinced me and said that I was worthy, and I joined Alpha Phi Sigma way back then. And it actually helped a whole lot to actually have it, that it was great on my resume. I received some scholarship money as well. So I love that you all are here. I love that I'm part of this. I'm proud to say I am alum and have been so for a long time. And thank you to Dr. Professor Nancy Aline, who actually got the chapter of Alpha Phi Sigma on Miami-Dade campus for the very first time about 4 years ago. So with that, Dr. Telesco asked me to talk about the reality of crime scene. The CSI effect. Do we all know what that is? Did we ever know what we have as far as the CSI effect? Because if you all don't know this, 70 million of you are actually watching the CSI shows. Come on, put into the panel for me. Tell me what shows you're watching out there. Who's watching Dexter? Who's watching NCIS? Who's watching Criminal Minds? Come on, who is it? Who's watching? Okay, CSI Miami. All right, perfect. We've got some CSI Miami people out there watching. I am from Miami myself. Criminal Minds. There's so many shows out there. The real shows, though, are your, your First 48, your Cold Case, your Forensic Files. So thanks, Jordan. CSI, Criminal Minds. So it's important to know that some of that is quite Hollywood, and they make it drama so that it's exciting. I'd like to say every day it's exciting in crime scene. I can't say it is all the time, but I can tell you this: I loved every single day working crime scene investigations because I love not knowing what's waiting for me. If you all love that, if you love that excitement, if you love that fluidity, if you like the dynamics, if you love not knowing what's waiting for you, crime scene is the place to be. It's the greatest job in the world. I would have loved to have continued that, but it's one of those things where my back and my knees were killing me. I've had my both knees replaced, and I had my back done surgery a couple months ago. It's hard labor. You have to be willing to get in the trenches. We can't be afraid of anything. I like to tell my students all the time, it's like, what are you afraid of? Because you can't be afraid of anything, because your scenes can be anywhere. I've had scenes everywhere and anywhere as long as it was in North Miami. I've seen a lot of ways people die. It gets very, very frustrating. I would like to say I am not emotional at all. I see some of you are putting some very interesting things in the chat, like how do I get rid of the body? Humans are actually quite resilient. It's quite difficult to just obliterate or eliminate us. And what's super important now is, y'all, with social media, we actually are having an even harder time disappearing because we're always in these chats. We're always on some social media. And right now, digital forensics is really, really hot. And really important in the field of crime scene. So let's see what's the reality of crime scene. I'm going to show you a quick little presentation. Let's see what you think as far as the reality. So everybody, hopefully you can see my screen. Please type in the chat bar if you cannot. But we know 70 million people, such as yourself, are watching the shows on TV, and they believe what they're seeing is real. Jurors in trial will question us in crime scene, or even our forensic scientists, saying, well, wait a second, I didn't see that on TV. That cannot be true. We understand that even though it's on TV, it might not be real. I've had victims, when I'm on their scene, ask me where my Hummer was. I'm like, it wasn't in the budget this year, and it's a very expensive vehicle. Please understand that the shows are not the reality. DNA results and fingerprint results don't come off the same machinery or the same science, and it doesn't happen in a very short amount of time. Different roles for different purposes. When y'all are sick, you go to different doctors for what hurts you. We don't solve every case. I'd love to say that I could solve every case, but I will tell you this. I gave myself, and still do, because I still do some crime scene work, I give myself 100%. So I may not have solved it, but I gave it everything it needed to try to solve the case. Our job in crime scene is to seek the truth. It's to seek the truth. Not everything has physical evidence. Everybody thinks that every case has physical evidence, but it's important to understand what is evidence. Just because a shooting occurs in, say, a classroom doesn't mean everything in there is actually evidence. We have indications that a class may have been in session, But the truth is the only evidence you've got may be bullets, casings, where the offender came in and out, what did they touch, what did they stand on. Those are the only things you may have that actually are related to your evidence that can help solve your case. It's not my job to put a victim on their own scene, y'all. It's my job to try to find the offender that committed the crimes. So we have a lot of different aspects that we battle with this CSI effect. Well, what's the reality of our crime scene? Well, this is me and my girlfriend, Chris. She's a crime scene investigator in the county. And what do? We do go out there and document the scene as a crime scene investigator. We process the scene. We search for evidence and collect it. We do what we have to with it, do some processing, but then we might forward it to the lab. I tell the forensic scientists a lot that if it weren't for a crime scene, they probably wouldn't have anything to evaluate unless you are a forensic scientist that actually goes out to the scene, which right now I'm in California. And out here, they actually have their lab people go out and do the crime scene work also, which is fantastic because then you've actually got less people involved in the case and in your evidence. But this is what you're seeing in Hollywood, a Hummer as a vehicle. Well, that would be awesome if I had that. But the truth of the matter is this is what we drive. We drive vans, or we have these big dually trucks because we need space for our equipment. No, we do not transport bodies in these vehicles. We only have tools in which to do the job. It's about wearing the right equipment. We don't always look sexy in our PPE, but we are protected. And you all are living the dream right now. Masks. We always wear masks in crime scene, but we're all wearing them now to prevent the spread of disease. We also know this for us on crime scenes. When we look at the shows, we see that those are their shoes, nice high heels. And yet we see these are our shoes, comfortable. We can be on our feet for a long period of time. When we go out there, we see that they look really nice and gorgeous in their clothing. This is what we'll look like. You'll see me in the top left corner. That's me. I'm practical. Now, I like to tuck my pants into my socks, not because I think it looks super cool, but because it really helps prevent the cockroaches from climbing up into your pants on certain scenes. I've been on scenes where they were covered in roaches, but it also helps from your pants dragging through bodily fluids. This is what they look like. Beautiful, right? Nice long hair, looking awesome, light fabrics. This is what we will look like. That's my girlfriend, Chris, right in the trenches, digging up for bodies, pulling things out, evidence that might be there. Can you imagine having your hair down and being in the trench like that, or being in a pit, pulling out body parts, and your hair is in your face and you're like, oh my gosh, my hair is in my face. So we actually like to have our hair up and we are protecting ourselves from contaminating our crime scene. Again, this is what they'll look like and this is what we look like. I'd love to say we look attractive and everything, but we don't, because we know more than anything, it's about making sure we protect ourselves and protect our scenes. We will be not wearing this at all. We'll be more looking like this. So is everybody getting the point of the reality of the crime scene, of what we're looking at? This is us in our PPE, personal protection equipment, and that's how we look when we're out on a crime scene.
So I just wanted to pop in for just 1 second and say that I want to apologize for anything that was disturbing in the chat. You know, Professor Plotkin, soon to be Dr. Plotkin. Maybe you couldn't hear me. Let me say that again. I want to apologize for any obscenities that you may have seen. We got Zoom bombed apparently, and some people were putting some very offensive things, and I apologize for that in the chat. Now, I have my production team behind the scenes throwing people out. So we've done our due diligence in order to throw people out. So that's unfortunate that we have that. But Professor Plotkin and I said soon to be Dr. Plotkin, who just finished her chapter 2. She's going for her PhD in education. Dr. Durham would be so happy to hear that, at another institution. But nevertheless, doctor of education is what soon to be Dr. Plotkin is pursuing. But Sharon and I are former law enforcement. There isn't anything we haven't seen or heard. However, this is an educational environment. And so it's really unfortunate that people would be doing that and to disturb us. But and so I just want to say that I apologize for that. As soon as we started to spot it, and then we were able to remove people from the room, we
Yeah, it
did
was
so.
quite distracting, but it was okay.
Yeah, and we have a tough skin, but there might be, that's not Alpha Phi Sigma members. That's not NSU members either that would be doing that. That's for sure. And so I apologize if that distracted you in any way. But maybe we could just shift gears just for a minute and talk a little bit about the inner workings, because I think that it looked like in the chat, from what was not offensive that was posted, that a lot of people are very interested in forensics, and they're very interested in crime scene technology, and blood splatter, and then they watch these shows, and then they think they become experts. The truth of the matter is, though, that it's very difficult to actually retrieve from a scene that which would be so clearly damaging, and evidence that would convict this person instantly, before the end of the hour show is up. Obviously this takes a lot of time, a lot of effort, and sometimes it's not that easy. So can you speak to a particular maybe crime scene that you are familiar with, that you've done, that it's hard for you to ever shake that off of your head, the memories of it, but maybe to talk a little bit about that fact-finding mission? What was that like at the crime scene? And first tell us about what the crime was, then tell us your fact-finding mission, tell us how you gathered the intelligence and the evidence, and maybe how that helped solve the case.
Okay. And that's a great question. And I love that you all are here. Thank you very much. I love that you're here, and thank you for the congratulations. I tell my students that I am getting a PhD not for any other reason, but because I want to be the best instructor I can be. That's why I'm getting it in education. I don't want to be a dean. I love being in the classroom. I love teaching. I don't want to get far removed from students. I love teaching this topic. As my colleague said very well, get out there and make them as good as you are in crime scene. So thank you all for your acknowledgement on the doctoral degree. I would like to say also, and I feel like a lot of things are a blessing, as well as hard work and diligence. I have published a textbook in crime scene reconstruction, and have my second one coming out in March. So I love that. I love being able to have instructor materials, but more than anything, I want crime scene people to be able to pick up my book and feel like it's a field manual. I want to make their lives easier. Go ahead.
Yeah, no. So Professor Plotkin, do us a favor, if you can, put it in the chat, what the name of the text is, when you get a chance. Just give us that. Tell us the name of the text, so that we could share that, with our students, and share that with the rest of the Alpha Phi Sigma members.
Thank you. I appreciate that. But I wanted to say this also. A lot of people aren't sure what your credentials have to be to actually do crime scene work. A lot of agencies, they don't want you to be sworn. So recognize that you could actually come right out of school, and y'all are in the right place. A lot of agencies might only require, like mine did, a high school diploma and specialized training. Now, I had my master's degree from Florida International University, never knew what I was going to do. When I started doing crime scene in 1995, and just so you know, that means I started when I was 12. Okay, so I was very young when I started crime scene in 1995. But when we were
Well,
doing it,
that's kind of, I don't know how that could be true, because I thought you were like about 7 or so. If we do math, you know,
30 right
and
now,
I,
right? So, exactly.
you don't look a day over 25.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay. So thank you, Dr. Telesco. And thank you, Madai, for putting that in there. Yes. And I actually have a fingerprint book coming out that's with me, Hawthorne, and Francis. Thank you, Madai. So, but you don't have to be sworn. So don't ever take that. If you have somebody saying, oh, you got to be a cop first. No, because by being in the field I'm in, I was actually able to go right into crime scene investigations with my degree. Now, the weird thing is, I had never seen a dead body. My twin sister was working at North Miami at the time, and I had a master's degree in criminal justice with psychology because at FIU we didn't have a criminology degree. So I integrated the two schools because I wanted to be a profiler. And when I got the degree, I wasn't jumping right into work because I actually got married and I was having children. And my twin sister said, hey, they're looking for crime scene here. Do you want to do this? I'm like, what? I don't even know what that is. And I actually went and applied for the job, never had training in it because we didn't have this degree in 1995. It truly is because of the O.J. Simpson case and the Nicole Brown Simpson and Ron Goldman homicides that crime scene got its first real taste of how important crime scene investigation work is to the successful outcome of criminal investigations. So I actually, by fluke, got the job, never thinking I would do it, had not seen a dead body. I was not even sure if I could handle it. And 2 days on the job, I was already going out to my first deceased body. People ask me, either you got it or you don't. I'm not even sure what that means, but you either can handle it or you can't. And the way to really know is just that you've just got to be willing to be open to anything, to trying anything, to be willing to seek the truth in the strangest of places and be in the worst environments and still keep a level head in doing that. Now, Dr. Telesco asked about cases. I saw a lot of death. I saw the most horrible things that people could do to one another. I saw that to children. I saw that to babies. I saw that to husbands, wives, brothers, children. Heck, some people commit suicide and kill their family pets as well. It's so hard to understand. And I remember when I had a student who said, oh, I need to know why they committed the crime. Y'all, in crime scene, we don't answer why. We answer what, we answer who, and we answer how. Why is a detective's job. Why was this murder committed? Why did this person want to commit suicide? Why are there a slew of burglaries or a slew of robberies? So that's not our job. So I want to say that we are not callous. We are not desensitized. Dr. Telesco, working in New York, and you were there during 9/11, doesn't mean that because we're exposed to so much, we're desensitized to it, because that kind of means we don't feel. What
Right.
it means is that we know how to deal with it, right?
Yeah, and the interesting thing though, and we will be talking about this maybe later on at the end, is cumulative stress and cumulative trauma, and so you see it, it's shocking and jarring to your psyche, and then you go on the next case and the next case and the next case, and before you know it, you're not even realizing or recognizing how impactful this is, in terms of your spirit and your emotions, and this is why it's so important. Self-care, we'll talk about that maybe at the end.
And that's a great point, because at the end of the day, I've got to be able to handle what I'm seeing. I have to remain objective and non-biased. Y'all, I never cried for a victim. I know that sounds horrible to say it that way. A lot of cases, it was already too late for them. So, but Was I passionate about that case? Yes. Was I going to do everything I can to speak for them? Yes. We like to say, and medical examiners and coroners say, that we speak for the dead. We do come from that realm. And even though the dead can't speak, there is so much that we can say and do for the deceased and come forward. So, as far as cases, I think, it's funny what you wonder what affects you the most. People ask me all the time. I have two daughters that lived through me living in crime scene and working it. And a lot of times, what wound up happening, I love it, Josh. Your dream job is to be a CSI. I love that you want to do that. And after this, I have my contact information. Please reach out to me. I am here with all of you. I want you to become who exactly you want to be. I want you to get educated and do this in the field. Okay. It's the greatest job in the world. But my daughters suffered the most from this job, not because I worked a lot of hours, not because I missed their birthdays and their holidays, but because every time a case would happen involving children, I would go back home and I would do the refresher with my kids. So if I handled an arson where children died in the house, I used to come home and without telling them, I would do a fire drill in the middle of the night, so that they would know how to get out of the house safely. When I handled drowning cases of children or adults, I'd go back home and say, kids, let's get back into the pool. Let's make sure we're strong in swimming. While everybody else had beautiful artwork of their children on their refrigerators, I had the latest pedophile sexual offender list on mine, with the pictures of all the offenders that lived within a couple mile radius of the house. So in that way, my children were affected by what I did, but they were proud of me and loved what I did. But as far as the case goes, I handled, and Dr. Telesco mentioned how difficult it is. The difficulty in the cases is having the tenacity, the ambition, the drive, and the passion that if the evidence is on that scene, you will find it. You will find it. And you could be there for days. Y'all, I was on scenes for days. I didn't sleep a lot of the time. Did you want to say something?
I did. I wanted to just ask you a quick question about, we see this, on Dexter and just, Criminal Minds and all this other stuff, how, they can use infrared, there's infrared lighting, and you can, get blood splatter, and you can, no matter what you try to do to try to, take something, clean up a crime scene. What can you tell us a little bit about that? Is that how real is that? What kind of resources do you have in the street, in the field as a crime scene investigator? And is there any truth to that, or is that all myth stuff?
Well, I love that you brought that up, because I am going to share a screen again with you all to show you the real toys we have to play with. By the way, Dr. Telesco, and I don't want to have to correct you, but in blood, we say spatter. Okay. The word is spatter, not splatter. Okay. And I am very lucky that I actually know the writer of Dexter. His name is Jeff Lindsay. I am very happy to say and blessed to say that I have actually consulted with mystery writers, from Jeff Lindsay, who writes Dexter, to Linda Fairstein, James Patterson, David Baldacci, so many of them that I actually get a chance to consult with in order to be able to keep it real. Because as I told David Baldacci and Jeff Lindsay, your readers are our jurors. So please try to keep it real. So how alike are we, and what kind of cool toys do we have? Well, we do trajectory. We love to do shooting trajectory, so we can tell you where bullets are going. We call them flight paths. We do a lot of blood stain reconstruction. This is what the Dexter show is about. I have actually told Jeff Lindsay that the amount of blood that Michael C. Hall would have on a particular scene had to be at least several people. Really, guys, we only have 5 quarts of blood. How much can be all over a scene? Now, in movement, we could be shedding blood and doing things with that. But some of the very cool things, and just today in California, I was teaching our lab people who are also crime scene how to find blood that's totally gone. We
Sharon,
use some really awesome
can you?
chemicals.
Yeah, Sharon, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Can you just make your make this PowerPoint like slideshow so that yeah, that's much better. Thank
Okay,
you.
got it. Yep. So y'all, we use awesome alternate light sources to be able to find evidence that we can't see with the human eye, sort of like that. Pretty cool fingerprint on a magazine of a firearm. And we use really cool gel lifters. We can get things off of doors, off of floors. We can get a dust print off of walls or floors. We use forensic vacuums. Looks like your traditional vacuum, but you call it a forensic vacuum when we're actually going to apply science to that. So it's got special filters in it. This is the coolest thing. We call it luminol or blue star. This is totally blood that has been cleaned up that you do not see unless you put chemicals in there, and now it chemical luminesces. The interesting thing is when shows show this, they're actually inaccurate because you can't see this stuff with light. It's in the dark. So you got to be able to see it. And by the way, crime scene people are amazing photographers because I can photograph anything in low lighting or no lighting at all. Because if my eyes can see it, my camera can. We do some really cool casting stuff so we can get shoe impressions. I was called the shoe wear queen on my department because I realized that if you can hide your face, if you can wear gloves and a mask, your identity is hidden. But when you all can learn to fly, let me know. Because until then, you all as offenders or any offenders walked on and walked off a crime scene. If your feet are on the ground and the surface is conducive, I'm going to get you. We've got great techniques we can do. And then getting shoe impressions for standards, picking up residues on hands. How many of you have gone to the airport and had a nitrate test? It's the same thing. Fingerprinting. We have got so many cool techniques for fingerprinting. We can get fingerprints off of skin. We can get fingerprints off of wood, leathers, floors, off of glass and mirror. Heck, that's the easy one. We have so many interesting dye stains that we use. Fabrics, we can get great fingerprints and great impressions off of fabrics. Using cool alternate light sources to find evidence that the human eye can't see, of course, things like that. And then we said shoe wear, and then doing the comparison. So those are some of the cool toys that we actually, I like to say toys, but some of the cool tools that we use in crime scene to be able to find evidence. Let me just say this. It isn't the body that solves our case. The chief medical examiner, Dr. Bruce Hyma, said to me very clearly, he said, Sharon, we very rarely solve your case. It's you guys. It's you out there finding the smallest piece of evidence to the biggest piece of evidence. He said, I'm just going to tell you the cause and the manner and how somebody died. You're going to tell us who did it. Make sense?
Absolutely, absolutely. We have a couple of comments here from the group. A lot of people are just, so appreciative of all of this information, loving the presentation. And the one that I want to mention here, that it's a dream job for Brittany. It seems like it's a dream job for Josh as well. Josh Enfinger, who's one of our behind the scenes guys. He's a CJ major and about to graduate. He's a senior. And so he's really interesting because he's interested in this. And it looks like Brittany is interested in this too, but she says that they don't have that in Hawaii unless you're sworn. You have to be a sworn member and work your way up through the department. So maybe you can speak to that a little bit. Like kind of what do I want to be when I grow up? I think a lot of criminal justice students, they see stuff on TV that it really looks exciting. And this certainly is, CSI stuff is very, very exciting. And, even though I have a master's in CJ and I was a 20-year veteran with the NYPD, I made the mistake of saying, the wrong terminology because it's not my area of expertise. Right. So in your area of expertise, what would you say, what would you recommend to students who are looking to either go past, graduate school at, in an advanced program of some sort? Like we have a master's in CJ that has a concentration in forensic technology, investigative forensic technology. So would you like recommend that to students, undergrad, graduate level, like what?
So, what? Oh, I need a half hour? No, okay,
I'll
no problem.
take over. Okay, let me take over for a
Oh
minute.
my gosh, I'm so sorry.
No, that's
Okay,
okay. No, that's
okay,
okay. So I guess what I'm asking,
okay, I'm so sorry about that. I'm actually on a shooting range in California.
I
Um,
know, we want you to be careful. We want you to pay attention.
no, it's okay. I thought I had until 5 here.
Okay.
So actually, it does depend on where you're at, for sure. As far as, and like Brittany said, according to where you live is going to be determine what they require. Y'all are in the right place because you're getting an education. That makes you marketable. That's going to make you more employable. I'd love to give a quick shout out to Madai, who is here. She's one of our students at Miami-Dade. Madai got out of the classroom, did a lot of extra trainings, and got picked up by the city of Miami over hundreds of applicants. Okay, so with that, so it was awesome that she was able to get that. But I would say get your education, try to get some online trainings that are available out there. There are 40-hour classes that are offered all over that you can actually go to. There's a lot of forensic companies that offer these training sessions. Your Alpha Phi Sigma has helped a lot with that as well. There are a lot of college programs that offer this. Now, I did want to say also that from a forensic standpoint, if you're going to do forensics, meaning in the lab, you have to have a hard science degree. You got to go for your biologies, your chemistries. To do crime scene, and that means field work, a lot of times we want you just to be trained in crime scene. So that's where you're going to go for your crime scene technology. So at our college, we actually divide the two. We have our hard sciences and then we have our crime scene degree. So you can actually work in the field itself.
Right.
So,
So there's if I can just interject here, there's a couple of I'd like to just field maybe some of the chat comments. We no longer have to worry about any off color ones, but anyway, these are genuine comments and genuine questions. I'm going to start with, let's see. Isabella is saying that she's a CJ major, still trying to figure out what to do before she graduates. And again, Josh and Brittany, this is their dream job, and they're wondering about the application process. Heather especially is asking you if you could discuss more about the application process. I don't think I know of the proper resources or channels to use to get started.
So, okay, so y'all, my email is in there, and I so apologize. I was told I had until 5 o'clock here out on the range, and they're telling me they want me out of here in the next 5 minutes. So I'm so sorry to do this to you, Dr. Telesco. I am actually not in my own location
Right
now. So they're like very difficult about this right now. I have put my email into the chat room for you. My thing is stay in school, be willing to travel. Just because where you live doesn't offer it for a civilian to do the job does not mean the work is not out there. You have to be willing to go out there and move if you want to really do the job. You don't actually need a master's in this field. To be honest with you, some agencies actually think you're overqualified to do that. They think you actually have too much education and therefore you might want too much money. Finishing up a bachelor's in CJ, you honestly, to me, get the job now. You have the credentials with the 4-year degree. Absolutely. You have it. My thing is go out there and get the job. Your agencies, a lot of agencies will pay for your education to continue. So I always say, if you can get the job now with what you have, apply. It will take a year to get the job with their credentials. So Now, you got to actually be a citizen here because you're going to be driving a car. You're going to be in possession of equipment, at least a visa. An associate's will work for a lot of agencies. You have to ask yourself where you can apply for the job. I can tell you this, if a student has a 4-year degree or a 2-year degree, I'm probably going to pick up the 4-year degree student, graduate. But if a 2-year degree student has all these extra classes, I'm teaching a 40-hour crime scene right now in California. And because of that, it's just 40 hours of crime scene through a forensic organization. You get some of those under your belt, we want you, because that's the training we're looking for you to get. All right, how does that sound? Please, I put it in the chat. I'm so sorry. I will put it back in. Dr. Telesco, please forgive me. I do not know. I think they had an early day on the range, therefore I have an early day in the classroom.
Okay.
I can't.
It's no problem, but what I can do is I can pick up where you left off with just a couple of your slides that I think are really, really good about fact finding, and that anyone who's interested in the investigative process, I won't get into the forensic piece of it or the literal the technical pieces of that, because it's beyond my area of expertise.
I mean, I just need to jump out. If you just give me about 5 minutes, I can probably jump right back on.
Well, then that's what we'll do, because we want you.
Okay. Give me 5 minutes.
We want you on that wall.
Okay. I will do that. Okay.
All right. Excellent. That's good. So I'm going to actually try to warm up the audience, I guess, is what I'm going to do, if you guys don't mind. And I'm not able to actually answer any of those questions that are related to how do you get, this, how do you get into forensics, except that I would say that I'm a big proponent for the master's program. Now, if you're interested in, crime scene investigations in the field, then we definitely believe what Sharon is saying, that a master's might make you too overqualified. But then there's always managerial positions, and there's always the supervisory role, and a master's is something that is very marketable if you're interested in being a boss at some point. So let me just let me share my computer screen with you for a moment. Okay. So hopefully you're all seeing this, and what Sharon was going to talk about, and I'll just kind of cover for her for a minute. Hopefully you're seeing soon. Not there. It is. There it is. You are seeing it. So to be able to form a conclusion you're walking into a crime scene, and maybe it's a homicide, maybe it's a stabbing. The first question that you want to think about are all of the really important explanatory factors associated with the victim. Who are they? Do they live there? Are they right-handed or left-handed? Do they smoke? Because there might be some cigarettes that are there. What brand do they smoke? Are there any injuries on the victim? The height of the victim? Possible blood on the wall matching the victim? Handwriting on a note, perhaps? If it's a suicide, has the victim attempted suicide before? Matching shoe on the scene? All of these things to think about. As far as a firearm, does the victim own a firearm? Whose firearm is it? Is it operational? Does the firearm match the casing? Is there a projectile or a bullet in the body? Does this projectile or bullet match the gun? What distance is the firearm to its target? And, this is another interesting thing that I was going to talk about. And we also have a doctorate here at NSU, those of you who know that. And I've had several students who have done their dissertations on the CSI effect. The CSI effect not only on the actual police officer or civilian who becomes a police officer. So there's a lot of expectations about, What does it look like? What does it look like to be a CSI investigator, or what does it look like to be a detective, a police investigator? So that you see these shows on TV and you think, oh, this is exactly what it's about. And meanwhile, we know that it isn't. And in fact, I used to teach at the police academy many, many years, and I would tell my recruits in New York, in the NYPD, policing is hours of boredom, moments of terror. But on a show, a crime show, you're going to see the whole entire hour is exciting and tense, with lots of clues, and then definitely, like I was saying to Sharon earlier, then the case is like immediately solved by but by the last second to last commercial. Not only is the case solved, but the defendant is convicted and sentenced. That's not how reality works. So the CSI effect is problematic because it makes people think that cases are solved that easily, and they're not. Some cases can go on for weeks, months, and as we know, many cases are actually unsolved. So the CSI effect has a deleterious effect, a bad outcome, a bad effect on people who want to become cops, people who want to, get into the field of criminal justice, because they have an idea in their head, which is, it's a Hollywood idea, and it's not, it's not the reality, right? In fact, we teach a course at the undergrad level, the CSI effect, and the media impact, and how the media plays a role in making these determinations for people. Josh is actually putting in the chat right now, some of our undergrad courses: criminal investigations, the CSI effect; in media, forensic psychology, the psychology of criminal behavior. So that's at the undergrad level. And then at the master's level, like I said, we have some awesome, excellent specializations, and it's a concentration in investigative forensic technology. So the CSI effect, as some of my PhD students have looked at, has an impact on jurors as well. And that's a big problem. Madison says she's been considering using her CJ degree for the military, but not sure what all the options are for that. And it looks like we might have Sharon back. So it looks like Sharon is back, and we're going to promote her to a panelist. And then after she's a panelist, we're going to have her share her screen again with us, make her a co-host. And so it looks like Sharon's back, and she is.
You awesome. All. Sorry.
No, it's cool. I vamped. I think it's called vamping. I vamped.
That's how we are. We think quick on our feet. They were like, you need to go. I was like, okay, we're out. So thank you, everybody, for that.
So listen, Sharon, this is what I did. I shared one of your two slides that you had. Actually, three slides. One was about the fact-finding mission. Gathering intelligence at the scene, knowing about the victim. What are the things? Demographics. Who do they live with? Do they smoke? All of those different questions that you want to ask about the victim. And then the next slide was about firearms. And so I went over that, just, basically read your slide for them. And then the third slide that I started getting into when you popped in was the CSI effect. And I was saying that I have a doctoral student who defended her dissertation that looked at the CSI effect and its effect on juries, and how negative, that there's a deleterious effect, a negative outcome, in fact, that a CSI effect can have on a jury. Can you speak to that at all?
So that's so important to us, and that's a great question, Dr. Telesco. I have had jurors on the stand ask me certain questions and actually say that because they saw it in TV, that they thought what I was saying wasn't realistic. Um, it's so important to remember that the TV shows are dramatizing for ratings. And what happens is they have an unrealistic view. What's really hurting us on the stand is that because you all watch these programs, you're feeling you are an expert in this area. Not every case has physical evidence. I cannot solve everything. If it isn't on the scene, I'm not going to plant it. And there's a reality to it. How long does it take to get results? When are we going to actually see the fruits of our labor? You know, I ask a lot of questions on the scene, but I'm not asking them in a way like I want to figure out the victimology of why the crime occurred. But like Dr. Telesco was mentioning, if I have a scene and there's cigarettes on the scene and there's cigarette butts in the ashtray, do y'all realize that we can actually get fingerprints and DNA from cigarette butts? But what's important is if my victim smokes, then I'm going to hit on her own scene. I had a homicide where a guy was he was stabbed repeatedly in the bathroom. Actually, he was face down. He didn't do any defense. He had no defensive wounds, which means he did not put up a fight. And to be graphic, I hate to say, but they actually tried to remove his head with a small steak knife. What was so amazing on that scene was they cleaned it up. They actually removed all the knives, but they forgot one really important thing. In the oven of his home, because I could see he had been entertaining, he had wine glasses and beer glasses or beer bottles. He was not a beer drinker. Whoever came there brought beer with them. So I found the beer in the fridge and I found some bottles. But what made the case was in the oven was a pizza box, and there were uneaten pizza crusts in the box. And I actually took the pizza crusts and swabbed them for DNA. I also got fingerprints off of the pizza box, not belonging to my victim. So sometimes the weirdest things will solve your case. I say if you're dysfunctional, demented, and perverted, a degree of perversion, you'll be a great crime scene investigator. You got to be very willing to think so outside the box. Realize that scenes are not conforming to anything particular. People live in very bizarre, interesting, dynamic ways. So learning somewhat of how they live will help you answer questions because you're finding something on the scene that's actually taking you in a certain direction. So cigarette butts could do that, but I have solved cases with a piece of evidence that was that big and was able to convict the guy, the son of killing both of his parents for money.
Wow. Wow. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that case with us. That's really, really perfect. Perfectly perfect illustration, I think. So there's two things that I want to talk about before we end. One thing in particular is something that I would often talk to police recruits about, and this is not how important it is not to damage any of the evidence at the crime scene, and how police officers, and not to pick on them, but you know, as a former lieutenant, it used to drive me crazy when you'd get on the scene and you'd see, you know, what are you doing? What are you doing? Why are you in, you know, why are you in the apartment? Why are you smoking a cigarette? Number one, you know, please, you're destroying evidence. You have no idea the integrity of the crime scene is being compromised. So can you speak to that? I mean, particularly rookies need to know this information, and I would imagine CJ undergrads would love to hear this, as well as you know, any CJ student and Alpha Phi Sigma member would love to hear also your kind of tips and suggestions to the people who are in the field. You know, like when they come upon a scene that's a homicide, or, you know, of course you have to always render first aid. Try to see if you can render first aid, speak to that, and then go on to how you make sure that you're maintaining the integrity of a crime scene and you're not compromising it in any way?
That's really a great question too. I love law enforcement. I know there's a lot going on right now with law enforcement, but I love them. I believe in them. There are bad apples out there. It is our job to not only represent correctly, ethically, with our good morals. Morals is not a part-time thing. You either have them or you don't. There were many scenes I went to that were contaminated by the officers and firefighters. You all, saving a life is number one. We want our police officers, we want our fire rescue, not only to go out there and save a life, but please protect the living as well from being by having something happen to them because you still have an offender out there. I actually was working a sexual battery case. The scene was secured and the offender came out of the closet. Now I am a civilian. What am I going to do? Beat him up with bad language? I'm going to have to beat his butt up. Okay. So I'm not carrying a gun. And, that's not a secured scene. It is important for officers to render aid, secure a scene, and then, and in securing the scene, make sure that there aren't offenders still present, and then protect the evidence. I will always be willing to say, save a life first. It is more important. I spend a lot of time eliminating the things the firefighters have left behind, like their medical paraphernalia. I had to call one team and say, hey, do you guys want your EKG machine? Because you left it here. So otherwise, it's now part of my equipment. But officers, if we can minimize how much they contaminate the scene, that would be important. I had a homicide suicide. The guy shot his wife in the face with a shotgun. It was very messy. And then he put the shotgun on himself and he committed suicide that way too. Very, very, very graphic scene, very messy. Brains and blood were everywhere. The fire rescue came out. We still require that fire rescue determine and they pronounce deceased. We as officers don't do that. They come out, they pronounce them deceased. But when I got to the scene, there was a second firefighting team in there, fire rescue. And I was like, guys, why are you in here? They're like, oh, this is such a cool scene. And we think it's a really good training for our firefighters. No, honey, no. We don't train on these active crime scenes. What I try to do is recognize that we are all very curious and we do like to learn. So what I like to do is I'm like, listen, let me get in there. Let me protect the evidence on that scene. And then just give me a little bit of time and I will call you back and you can come then. But in the meantime, we are working what we think could be an active double homicide. We treat all death cases if they are homicides before we rule them out to be anything else. So I just try to get it so that our officers and our firefighters minimize how much contact they have on the scene.
Yes. Great. There's a couple of questions here or comments really in the Q&A. And there's one that I really want to underscore. This is coming from Garner. He says, I am formally with the prosecutor's office after a case one day that our office didn't win. I spoke with a juror. It was a perfect case, but the verdict was not guilty. The juror wanted to know why we didn't take all the coins out of the payphone and test them for fingerprints. They had seen this on a Law and Order or case or show, and they were able to figure out the order of the coins and find the suspect.
Of course they can. This is the thing that I actually blame the state attorney on this, because questions like that will come up. I get questions like that on the stand all the time. Why didn't you get this fingerprint? Or how come you didn't process everything? We all need to recognize that coins in a payphone could be anybody's. And just because your fingerprints are on these coins, just because your DNA is there, does not mean you actually committed the crime. We need to also protect you all as innocent people. You all are shopping out there. I don't even want to tell you how many scenes I went out and processed and probably picked up your fingerprints on that scene solely because you were there. Now, I say that in a way because I don't know a lot of you, but in any public place, if a crime scene happens there, we will go out and we will fingerprint and we will DNA. But fingerprints, we will send to the lab to get an ID. But what would happen, and let me use Dr. Telesco. We have a robbery at the T-Mobile. Everybody's been shopping there. We have reason to believe that Dr. Telesco has been on that scene. She actually wasn't wearing a mask, and somebody said, when we sent the fingerprints to the lab, we got 30 IDs, 30, because 30 people had been arrested and were in this database. That is the Automated Fingerprint Identification System, AFIS. You have to have been arrested in this country for the fingerprints to be in that system. So now Dr. Telesco did rob the T-Mobile, but she was in there as well shopping, okay? Because she was casing the place out first. Now I send the fingerprints to the lab. I get 30 hits back. One of them is Dr. Telesco. We know that we were looking for a female. We know that it isn't a male. So we're going to weed out the others. We're going to get a couple lineups put together, and we're going to put Dr. Telesco in a lineup. We're going to then go back, a photo lineup, if you all know. We're going to go back, and this is the detective's job. We're going to go back to the clerk and say, do you recognize anybody in this lineup? That's her. And they're going to point out Dr. Telesco. But y'all, I had to show them 10 other females in a photo lineup because we didn't know which one had actually committed the crime. Now, if Dr. Telesco was wearing a mask, y'all, if Dr. Telesco tells us, I was there, I was shopping at the T-Mobile earlier that day, y'all, we're not going to arrest her for that crime. Do you see where we are held to a certain standard? Unlike what you're seeing in the shows, y'all, we don't want to put innocent people into databases. And DNA, we're not allowed to. By law, legislative law says we have to go out of our way not to put innocent people into a database. So in my mind, I'm not going to swab every coin in that phone because some of you left a coin in there when you actually made a phone call. So does that make sense to everybody? Do you understand where
Yes.
our guidelines are?
Yeah, I mean, it makes total sense. There's a couple of things that you've said that make a lot of sense. Number one, we really need to be wearing masks. Number one, okay.
And gloves.
You know, right. Number two, that this is why you should have a cell phone and not have to use a payphone. But Jordan, anyway,
but
I
don't think for a minute we're not going to get you with your cell phone either.
yes,
We're going to get you with your cell phone.
I know you are. And I have one more follow-up question here from Jordan. He's a prior military law enforcement. Thank you for your service. I'm wondering if there are any online resources, he says, or training that he could provide to those military law enforcement officers concerning basic crime scene practice. Crime scene is not taught as well as it should be, but it needs to be.
So I put my email in the chat bar, and Dr. Telesco, if you definitely could, we could pass it on again. I love your questions, and I know we don't have as much time. There is training out there. There is online trainings, and I hate to say it, the bad thing about COVID is it put us indoors. The good thing about COVID is it put us indoors. It's made it so a lot of companies are now providing webinars. There's TriTech Forensics, Searchie, SIRCHIE, TriTech, TRITECH. There's a Foster Freeman. Really, all you got to do is type in free online training or free online crime scene. There were so many conferences I actually have attended in the last 3 months that I would never have been allowed to go to solely because I didn't have the time. I just attended a forensic science conference, 3 days for free. It was phenomenal. And there's just so many wonderful ones. The International Association of Bloodstain Pattern Analysts, IABPA. Type that in .org. Amazing trainings. I just took a fabulous scientific Foundation of Bloodstain Pattern Analysis, where you're going to learn about great language. They have a conference coming up as well. I think for $30 you can attend it. It's like a 3-day conference.
Sharon,
There's
would you
a
mind
lot of
putting that in the chat if you don't mind? Can you
Okay,
put
now
that?
I don't see a chat button. I see a
So
participant Q&A. For some reason, I don't actually see that there, but
it was, it's where you put your email earlier.
I know, but actually I don't, oh, let me go to participants there. Okay, is it, no, participants? I actually don't see a button for chat, believe it or not. I see participants, Q&A.
Okay, that's fine. If you can, you can text it to me right now. If you text it to me, I'll be happy to
Okay.
share it in the
I
chat
can absolutely
right now.
do that.
But
I'm sorry, I don't know
here's-
why I don't have a chat thing.
Yeah,
there.
I don't know. Because I think I made you co-host. Yeah, you're a co-host. So
Okay, I'm gonna text it for you now. Was there
Oh,
any
cool.
last questions?
yeah, there is. There's one final thing that I want to talk about, and that's, comes from my background. My PhD is in social work. And so thinking about self-care for the crime scene investigator, seeing all of these really traumatic scenes, right? So, and we talked about this a little bit earlier, that you get this callousness, and you start to build up a resistance, but somewhere in the psyche, somewhere in psychologically in the unconscious, this definitely has an impact. Has an impact on us. And I know for myself, you don't like. I was part of 9/11. I was a ground zero first responder, and I didn't want to talk about this with my family when I got home. I didn't want to tell them the sights, the sounds, the smells, the things that I saw that were giving me nightmares. I didn't really want to tell them about it, but they ultimately wound up finding out via my behavior, which was definite post-traumatic stress and vicarious trauma and cumulative stress and all of that happens. It happens. We're only human. We're not superheroes. So what did you do for your own self-care? What did you do? What were the sort of techniques that you used, your coping mechanisms, your social support perhaps that you had? What were the things that helped you maintain your resiliency?
So you have to have a good support system. Recognize that if you need help, get it. There was a time where I needed the help and I went and sought it out. My department didn't believe that we needed to go to self-help classes, that we didn't need to be on medications. It is traumatic, but I will say this and take it to heart. Live every moment. It's important to realize that life is just so fragile. And being in this field, I saw it. You wake up one morning and you don't know it's your last. Be good to yourself, take care of yourself, try to sleep when you can. I say I'll sleep when I'm dead. I only got 4 hours of sleep a night. I still only sleep 4 hours a night because I was always up doing this job. Leave work behind. I said to myself, they own me for a certain amount of time, but when I get home, I have to leave it at the door. Don't let it come home with you. And I made every minute count. I made the time count with my family. I may not have had a lot of time with them when I was doing this, but I made it count. I made it worthy, and I live life. I still do this. I used to say, you work hard, you play hard, right? Make it count and realize that life is just so precious. Be good to yourself, be good to each other, and recognize if you need the help, get it. You don't need somebody else to say, Dr. Telesco, you're looking like hell. You're really not getting along with anybody. I'm seeing that you've got some anxieties. There was a time period in my career, I got very, very anxious. I got very phobic. I don't know why. I think it was actually a female hormonal thing. And I went and got help. And it got me through a very, very challenging time. But more than that, y'all, I work hard and I live very hard. I make every moment count. Please do that, because we really don't know if it's our last day.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it really gives you, an inside look into the preciousness of life. And I think that's what you're referring to. You know, when you live through these traumatic scenes, and you know, it's there but for the grace of God go I. You know that any one of us could be a victim at any time, and so it is important to live your life fully, you know, to the fullest. But also as a first responder, as a crime scene investigator, as a criminal justice, you know, practitioner, dealing with cases day after day, burnout is a reality. And so you want to be really aware of all of the things that Sharon has brought up. The way our nutrition, the way in which we exercise or don't exercise. You know, I know when I was on the job, it was coffee and cigarettes. I used to smoke. I stopped smoking in 1998, but I used to smoke 2.5 packs a day, and I was drinking 2.5 cups of coffee a day. And I mean, and that's all I did. I just that was it. And you know, you work, you know,
Fast
12-hour
food,
tours.
fast food between
Fast
scenes.
food, fast food. If you're working a midnight to 8, the only thing that's open is it's, you know, they're not going to have, you know, they're not going to have the, you know, fresh market drive through, you know, kind of thing. So,
I was so happy though. I used to work with one detective and she was very into health. So if she was on my scene, we would get sushi delivered. It's like, I used to love working scenes
yes.
with her. Everybody
Awesome.
else wanted pizza. I didn't eat pizza. I
Yeah.
didn't eat
You know,
like
that's
that.
right. And sometimes bringing your own food, you know, is really important. Try to stay away from the sugar and the caffeine and all of that, because it just plays it all is mind, body, spirit connection. And yeah, talking about it with other people. But cops specifically, law enforcement, even I would say, you know, in firefighters, medical EMTs, paramedics, it's this culture of macho, you know, don't share your feelings, don't. And there's also a real um it's a real fear, and it's not founded in any kind of fiction, that if you do come forward and say, listen, I'm losing it, I feel like I'm losing it, they will probably be calling in the captain, and and you're probably looking at maybe having your guns removed from you.
Yeah, they
And
will. They'll actually see if you're fit for duty.
that's
You know,
right. And
really
so it could be right. It could be career ending. You feel so you're fearful of coming forward, and that's why support groups are so important. And we had that in New York. I don't know what do you can you speak to what you have in North Miami? But it's a peer support. So you're not
there
going
is.
through.
We do have an employee assistant, but assistance program. But again, it was seen as a sign of weakness.
Right. Well,
People
employee assistance
would
is
know.
still, yeah, no, employee assistance is still seen as part of the structure, you know, the administration. You know, psych services, no, you wouldn't go there. Early intervention, no, you would stay away from that. But peer support is something that's on the outside. It's not a monitoring system at all. And so in NYPD, it was called PAPA. I don't know if North Miami police had that. But
No.
it's peer support, and it's separate and apart from the administration. And I highly recommend that. I also highly recommend to any police officers or anyone involved in crime scene work, you know, to seek outside help. You know, go see a therapist, go see a social worker, a licensed mental health counselor, anyone outside the job that you feel you could trust. You know, that you feel is a fit for you. The most important thing is to talk about it. Even go to your union. You can go to your union and you could talk to someone at the union. If you're a faith person, you can, you know, go to any one. If you're Jewish, you go see the rabbi. If you're, you know, Catholic, go see the priest. Or if you're Protestant, you can see the minister, or the imam. If you're Muslim, but whatever, just talk about it. You know, if you don't want to bring it home, because a lot of us didn't want to do that. We don't want to bring it home to our, you know, spouses and families, because we don't want to frighten them. We don't want to upset them. You know, we're protecting them. That's okay. Then talk to a friend. But I don't care who you talk to. Just talk to someone and get it out.
And you know, and that's such great advice. What's scary is the life expectancy of law enforcement upon retirement is 5 years. 5 years, and we're usually not among the living. So, and I worked through the agency when more than one of our officers committed suicide. It's a real travesty to not reach out and get the help. So I love what you said. Just talk. Just
Yeah,
talk to somebody.
just talk about it. And you know, hey, I'm retired since 2003. So I've outlived the statistic. That's good. I want everyone to know that I was not at that T-Mobile at all, and that I would never do anything like that of any
Never.
criminal nature. But Sharon, thank you so much for being with us tonight. Is any last words that you'd like to say to the group?
No, I so appreciate you all taking the time, letting me share who I am, how much I love it. I did send you, Dr. Telesco, those links. If you can
Yes,
put
and I
them in the
posted them. I
Okay,
posted them in the
thank
chat.
you. Please reach out to me. I love that you were here. I say once we meet, you've got me for life. I'm here to make sure you get where you want to be. Crime scene is the greatest job in the world. Do not
Yes.
give up on your dreams because it's hard. Everything worth working for was hard to get. Thank you so very much for the time.
Thank you, thank you.
all.
And we
Be well,
know
be
you're
safe.
busy, and we know you're in California right now, so that's like a time change and all, and you're in the middle of doing your training. So we really appreciate you taking the time out to be with us tonight. I want to say thank you to our dean, Dr. Kimberly Durham, who is with us, and also thank you to Dr. Tammy Kushner, who I see is watching on YouTube, and Dr. Jennifer Allen, who is the other faculty advisor for our chapter, Omega Tau Alpha Phi Sigma, was actually on YouTube. I don't know if she's on here in the webinar. I'm going to check and see if she is real quick, because if she is, then we can have her just pop in and say hello, but it doesn't look like it. Okay. So I want to give Dr. Durham a chance if she wanted to pop in and say something. I just gave you privileges to speak if you wanted to. Dr. Durham.
Hi, Dr. Telesco and everybody. Sharon, if you're still on, it was a most informative evening, and it was just really enjoyable. My colleagues and I were texting back and forth. We just think you're just awesome in your presentation. It's so evident that you're so passionate about the field, and it's so exciting to see so many people on tonight, and the students exchanging information and asking for more information. So thank you very, very much for spending time with us. I
Thank
really
you.
appreciate it. And Dr. T, wow, what an awesome evening. Thank you for that. And thank you for all of the students that support you. I really, really enjoyed tonight.
Good. Thank you so much again for all of your support and guidance in everything that you do as the Dean of Fischler College of Education, School of Criminal Justice. I want to say thank you again. David is saying Dr. T for president. I don't know about that. I don't know if I have the stomach for that, but he's just joking around. Anyway, thank you all Alpha Phi Sigma members for being here tonight. I really, really appreciate it. I love that you were all here in such great numbers, 53 people. That's just phenomenal. And let me just ask you guys, you want to do something like this again? If you want to do something like this again, just put a little yes in the chat, and we'll make sure it happens. For sure. Give me topics. Tell me what you want. Tell me, who you'd like to have, and we'll definitely, let me put my right now before we leave, GT243 at nova.edu. That's me. And just email me and tell me what topics you'd be interested in, what guest speakers you'd like to have. I know that Sharon has some connections. Maybe we could make a medical examiner kind of situation happen. I think that maybe they would really love that. So anyway, thank you again. Be safe, be well, and we'll see you again. Don't forget, Don't forget Monday. Don't forget Monday night. We've got Jimmy Shanahan. Now that's not on YouTube, so I know that we're still live streaming on YouTube at this point. But for Alpha Phi Sigma, you have the email. The email was sent out. We have Jimmy Shanahan Monday night. It's a different Zoom link. It's not the same one as tonight because it's not a webinar. But and how, Tara, you're asking, how do we find your future events? Well, if you email me that you're interested, I'll always invite you to anything that I'm doing. But Monday night, the Zoom link that I put in earlier, and I wonder if David and Josh can just kind of stick it in for a minute, put it in the chat, the Zoom link for Monday night. That's not live stream. That's not going to be a live event, but it's a virtual seminar. And Jimmy Shanahan is going to be talking about verbal judo and verbal de-escalation techniques for law enforcement. So that's just to my doctoral students, but I'm opening it up to Alpha Phi Sigma. If you're interested, you can join us. And next Thursday, we have Dr. Fleur Williams, and she's one of our PhD students. She graduated with her PhD from our School of Criminal Justice, and she's going to share her research. So anyway, everybody, thank you for